Greetings everyone. So this video is going to be about a rather disturbing and sad topic, and it relates to the priest Father Piotr Glas, who in England is probably more commonly known to his parishioners as Father Peter Glas. And he's basically been accused of sex crimes against somebody who at the time was a teenage boy. Now, I did a video about Piotr Glas some time ago, quite a while ago, and it was related to an amazing experience that he had, a supernatural experience that he had. He was talking about how the Eucharist basically saved him from quite possibly being killed in Poland when a youth burst into the church and was beating him up and then was going to try and burn him. And he was putting oil from the candles, I think, around the place. I can't remember the details exactly now. And then Father Piotr Glas basically reached for the Eucharist, and that Eucharist sent the kid flying back into the wall. And it later turned out, according to the priest, that he had been possessed and he had to go through a number of exorcisms. That sounded like an amazing story. I'm not saying it isn't true. It could well be true. But obviously now with these accusations, one questions whether it actually happened. I remember seeing another testimony by him talking about how when he was on a pilgrimage in Medjugorje, he was praying over people, and he was praying over this young girl, and he was saying that at that time he was unable to take his hands off her head. He felt like they were in cement. He couldn't get them off, and then at some point eventually he was able to, and the girl later told him, or she actually asked him, I think, who was that, and he asked her who she's talking about, and she said, well, when he was praying over her, everything went black, and a man with a ginger beard, she said, and long hair, I think, went over to her and basically told her something like, remain faithful or keep your faith and never break away. I'd have to look over that testimony again to remember the exact words. But essentially it appears that Jesus came up to her during this prayer, and she did have some kind of health problems, I think with her side or something. She had a problem walking, and she was healed from that. And her parents later in a testimony also confirmed that this had happened, that she'd been healed, that she said that this happened during the prayer. So another amazing testimony involving Father Piotr Glas. He's also been interviewed in a book that I actually own. It was a very long interview. All kinds of questions were asked by the author, and he gave some very on-point answers, some very good Christian answers, very good Catholic answers. It just seems like so much about him suggests he's just a really good priest. And that, of course, could be motive for him to be taken down. But again, I do not want to make any assumptions here. I don't know what happened. The only people that know what happened is Father Piotr Glas and his alleged victim. They know whether this happened, whether these accusations are true. And I'm about to go through a bit more detail of these accusations because the court proceedings have begun. They started on Monday, the 31st of March, and there was a local reporter there who has written up the main details from that day. And they are rather disturbing, I do warn you. I put it in the title. There is some disturbing graphic description of what's been going on. And it's one of those cases of, it's so obscure, the stuff that's being described. It's so weird that if it's made up, it's such a strange thing to make up about somebody. And I suppose that's the kind of thing that could lead you to wonder if it's actually true. Because if it's made up, it's a weird bunch of stuff to make up, it really is. And then if it's true, then it just makes you wonder about Father Piotr Glas and whether any of the stuff, any of these testimonies he's given about things that happened in his life, amazing supernatural things, are even real. I think there are three possible explanations here. One is that this is made up. For some reason, somebody's got it in for him and they want to take him down, and it's just a bunch of made up accusations against a very good priest. That's one possibility. And the second possibility is that it's true, and perhaps he was a good priest, and perhaps these testimonies he's given are true, and perhaps for this reason the devil really wanted him to fall, and he attacked him and he fell. He gave in to temptation. You know, if some of the things being described are true that he did with this teenage boy that I'm about to read to you, then it would appear that he suffered from same-sex attraction, and he must have given in to temptation and fell, basically. And then the third option, or you could say sort of option 2, point B, is that this is true, it has happened, and he's actually a liar, and these various stories that he's given, these miraculous stories that he's told, these testimonies, are just made up, and he just likes to make up stories and lie. But that's the hardest one to believe, because honestly, if you've seen some of the interviews he's given in the past to Polish media, if you've read any of his books, you'll see that the stuff that comes out of his mouth is just good. It's just really pure, good stuff that people need to listen to or people need to read. So to think that he's just made up a bunch of lies about things that happened in his life is just really difficult to swallow. And it seems unbelievable. But again, I do not know. The only person that knows really if the things he's said about his life are true is him. And as I said before, the only people that know whether these accusations against him are true are him and the alleged victim. So let me get into this first day in court. These are things that are alleged to have happened when he was in Jersey, hence why this has been covered by the Jersey edition of this paper. So the title of the piece is "Priest on Trial for Sexually Abusing Child as Part of Foot Fetish." I did tell you this is going to be rather weird. So the article starts out, "A priest who worked as a youth leader in Jersey is on trial accused of 10 charges of sexually abusing a young boy in the island." So I did do a video about this some months back as well, explaining that he's going to be on trial and he's been accused of sexually abusing somebody. So this explains that again. 10 charges of sexually abusing a young boy, including forcing the child to play a part in his foot fetish. Piotr Antony Glas, who is known as Peter when his Polish name is anglicized, denies 8 counts of committing acts of gross indecency and 2 counts of indecent assault against the child. But prosecutor Carla Carvalho told the royal court that the 61-year-old spent years grooming the young boy, using his position to get close to the alleged victim and his family, including lending them money. Mr. Glas is alleged to have committed the crimes while he was working for the Catholic deanery in Jersey. Advocate Carvalho said the priest took advantage of the child to act on his foot fetish by putting the boy's feet against his face while he masturbated and wrestling the child until his head was near the man's erect penis. So I did warn you, there's some disturbing stuff being said here. Some very disturbing things that Father Piotr Glas is being accused of. This happened countless times, according to Advocate Carvalho, and was sexually motivated. Mr. Glas is also alleged to have kissed the child twice. It was only years later that the complainant started coming to terms with what had happened to him, eventually confronting the priest, who the court was told did not deny the allegations and apologized. So allegedly, when confronted, Father Piotr Glas accepted that this happened and apologized to his victim and was sorry for what he did. Giving evidence yesterday, so I suppose this would have been on the 30th of March, because this is a write-up of what happened on the 31st of March, and it was published on the 31st of March. The alleged victim described how Mr. Glas showed him an endless flow of generosity and kindness. He said they got very close very quickly, and he received a great deal of attention, and that he enjoyed that. He then says that at first the priest asked him to walk on his back, allegedly to help with back pain. But after several months, the alleged victim said he was asked to walk on the priest's front. The priest then asked him to start kicking his face. The complainant described how he was at a computer when the priest would lie on the floor at his feet and masturbate, pressing his face into the child's feet. So again, this is this weird foot fetish that Father Piotr Glas allegedly has, who knows. He also described how the priest engaged in a play fight with him. He said he would get his body under control and pin him down, and that's when he says he was starting to get uncomfortable. The alleged victim described how Mr. Glas overpowered him and placed him so that his face was against the priest's groin and his feet held against his face. He recounted freeing himself and punching his alleged attacker, who was left with a black eye. And that's pretty much the main detail of some of these abuses that Father Piotr Glas is said to have committed. It's very disturbing stuff. It's very unusual stuff. It's like very quirky. And I know that people that have various sexual deviancies can be into really weird things, and this is certainly one of those. The stuff being described is very particular and very unusual, and that's what would make a person think this could be true, because it's such a weird thing to make up. Sometimes when somebody is supposed to be a victim of something and they describe what happened, and it's such an odd thing, such an unusual thing described in such detail, you do wonder how they could make something like this up. But once again, I do reiterate that I do not know. I do not want to accuse the priest of anything. I've never met the guy. I've never spoken to him. Based on things that I've seen from him in videos and things that I've read, he seemed like a very good priest to me, and that's why this is very strange, very hard to believe. But that doesn't mean that it isn't true. We don't know. I certainly don't want to suggest that it's made up if it did happen, because that wouldn't be fair to the alleged victim at this time. At this time, they are officially the alleged victim, because we don't know the outcome of this trial yet. I have had some people commenting underneath a previous video that I did about Father Piotr Glas, where I actually talked about the accusations. This was before the trial began, and people are generally saying, people who knew him personally, that they cannot believe this is possible. But you know, there have been cases of both. There are cases of where a priest has been accused of something horrific and people just could not believe that it was possible, and then it turned out to be true. There are also cases where a priest has been accused and dragged through the mud in the media, etc., and it turned out that actually these accusations were false. So it could be either one of those in this particular case. It's a very disturbing case. Some of the details I've just read to you are very disturbing. I will put a link to this article underneath the video if you want to have a read of it again yourself. And yes, if you know Father Piotr Glas personally, do feel free to leave some comments below as to what you think is going on here, as to whether you think this actually happened. For those of you who are very pro Father Piotr Glas, I do want to remind you that I am not accusing him of anything. You might be thinking to yourself, well, this video shouldn't even be made because it's giving him a bad name, but I am saying in this video that we don't know if this is true. And it's also something that's been reported in the media now, so I'm just reading the article. It's already in the public domain. It isn't me just throwing around accusations or starting rumors or anything like that. But do leave your comments below if you knew him, or if at any point in your life you have known him or met him, or even if you don't know him, just what do you think about this story? Do you think that it could be true, or do you think that it's likely to have been made up. Thanks very much for watching the video, folks. I know it wasn't an easy one to watch this time. Have a blessed day.